This is it. Highway.
How are you? I'm well, thank you.
What?
Yeah, how you doing? Good.
6 miles. Did you go by these two places?
Sorry about that. That's a good word.
Same old, same old.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it tonight.
Sorry, yeah.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock. Welcome to our workshop meeting, which is also a joint meeting with our Planning Commission this evening to listen to our presentations this evening. If we could start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Angie, would you mind doing our roll call this evening?
Thomas?
Here.
Chick? Here. Otto? Here. Dockett? Here. Braun? Here. Westover's here. Ingstrom?
Here. And Ken, since the Planning Commission is here, would you like to do your own roll call there?
Yeah, so we'll call the Planning Commission meeting to order, and I'm going to ask Mr. Aquino to do the roll, please.
Roman?
Here.
Chockley?
Here.
Iaquinto here. Dignan?
Present, and Stan Alicio is absent with notice.
He will be coming late.
Is he coming late?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know if he was going to. Thank you.
Great.
Just a reminder to everyone, just for tonight's purposes, speak clearly into the mic because we don't have Lisa Limble here for this evening.
And Mr. Kuzno just joined us.
Great. That takes us on to the adopt the balance of the agenda. Is there any additions or deletions this evening? No? I'll make a motion to adopt the balance of the agenda. Oh,
Let me see. What is, are we going to be voting on Eli Holdings, or what are we doing with that?
Yes, that is on the consent agenda for a vote.
So we're voting up or down on Eli. Thank you.
so there's a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
Support.
Thank you. Ingstrom motioned and Thomas supported. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. That takes us on to our consent agenda with the Eli Holdings LLC. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
Good.
Hold on, Wayne.
I'd like
Hold on. Ingstrom motioned and Chick supported. Any discussion, Wayne?
Yeah, I think people should know that what we're talking about here
Feel free if you'd like to.
is a new place that took the place of the lumber company. Is that correct?
No, they're not at the lumber company, are they?
No, that
Eli
was-
is, yeah, this
was-
is
Who's
the
he-
lighting company.
That was GYOA that we did last time. This is the company that's at 7050 Jomar. It's, I believe, a lighting company currently is leasing space.
Yes.
Okay.
The name of the company is EDSS.
Okay, well, I mean, I just think I'd like to know where we're talking about. Thank you.
All right, there's a motion on the table. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. This takes us on to the first call to the public. It's an opportunity for anyone to get up and share your thoughts, tell us your feelings. I do want to remind everyone that it is not a question and answer session, just an opportunity for you to speak. Do we have any speakers this evening? Well, come on up. Feel free to state your name and address.
Lewis Kemp, 523 Nala Road. I've been dealing with Howard Fink for a while now, trying to get some improvements on Nala and Joy Road. I've also been communicating with the Road Commission, asking for services out there. Extremely disappointed with the performance and communication from the Road Commission themselves. I've sent numerous emails. I get a few emails back every now and then. I did question one with the Road Commission. Maybe one of the gentlemen can answer it tonight. Back in January, they supposedly put 90 tons worth of material on 3 different roads. I drove the roads. I don't see 90 tons anywhere. I questioned it. I still have not got an answer. I've gone all the way to the top and submitted an email. I still have not received an answer. So my question is, where's the 90 tons? What's being done to the roads? I have a couple pictures I just want to submit tonight of Naller and Joy Road. The conditions of them that we keep finding. Today they did make some type of attempt to put some gravel on the road today, but this grading of the road and taking the mud, grass, and dirt from the side of the road, putting it to the center of the road, attempting to make a crown on the road, and making something happen is just not working. My daughter backed out of our driveway on the Naller Road a while back, got stuck in the center of the road. When we built our house on Naller Road, the county in Northfield had a driveway ordinance that required us to have a certain base to the driveway, certain access to it, certain access to the emergency vehicles. The driveway had to be inspected before I could build the house, so they have access to it. My driveway's in far better shape than Naller and Joy Road will ever be in quite some time. So I'm asking for some help from the board or the road commission to finally step up and get something done with our roads. But I'd like to submit these pictures to you. Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else that would like to speak this evening?
Hi, my name is David Gordon. I live on Hellner Road in the southwest section of our township. First, I want to thank the County Road Commission for the work they do. Sorry to hear that they're having issues with one of our residents here, and hope they get that cleared away. But I like the job they do on my road on Hellner, and it's they have kind of a thankless task with dirt roads that don't hold the work they do very long before the potholes take over again, and all the other work they do. So I wanted to thank them for that. And I noticed the second thing on the agenda tonight is the joint meeting regarding the sewer capacity study. I was looking at the old paperwork that came by last March 15th, I think, and a year ago was the last meeting on this subject. And I'm looking at the executive summary, and it's a recommendation to spend at least $3 million on putting a storage basin, quote, large enough to meet future needs up to the next expansion in treatment capacity, which I believe they told us a year ago would cost $20 to $30 million. This storage basin was recommended in 1988. It's supposed to last for up to 50 years. This is the life of the tank. We've already gone through 28 years without having one, without a problem, without spills, without state violations of our sewage treatment plant. It's been working fine. Had we spent however many dollars 28 years ago to put one in, it would have been money that really would have been worthless because we haven't needed it for 28 years. And half or more of the life of the tank would already be over. So what I would like to recommend is that one of the things I've learned in 64 years is if something's not broken, don't fix it. Don't spend money that you don't have. It would cost between $200,000 and $400,000 to borrow the money, according to the report that you have in front of you, and you can add that to the $2.8 million for the tank itself. I suggest that you wait until there's a need for it, and I don't see that on the horizon, and if a developer comes in here and wants to pay for it, that would be much better than putting this burden on the taxpayers. So let's not pour money into something we don't need and haven't needed for almost 30 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? All right. That takes us on to any board member comments at this time. Is there anyone that has anything to say? Planning Commission? All right. Thanks. Correspondence and announcements. Anyone have anything? Howard, you got anything?
Just a few things we're working on. We are starting the process of getting the community garden in place there on Main Street. You may have driven by and seen some boxes out there, so that's moving forward. We also have, the presentation tonight, and I think there will be a lot of good discussion on that and good information. This presentation tonight, both on the equalization basin and from the perspective of the new information that you'll hear tonight, which is represented in your maps, is really going to round out much of the sewer capacity study that we've done. It's not to say that we won't look at any additional small areas or maybe refine some things here and there, but in general, we really now have a full picture and understanding of the sewer system, and you will hear that tonight. I also have some thoughts later tonight with respect to the equalization basin that I will be talking about as well. In terms of announcements, I think that's it, unless anyone has any questions for me.
No? All right. Well, then it takes us on to our first presentation this evening from the Washtenaw County Road Commission. Welcome.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Roy Townsend, Managing Director at the Washtenaw County Road Commission. Also with me tonight is Barb Fuller, Vice Chair, Bill McFarlane, Commissioner, Jim Harmon, Mike Mastey, and Adam Lake back there. So sorry about that. I couldn't talk and look, point at him too. Or I can just bend over a little bit. Board packet, did you all receive a packet we sent out to you? Okay. What we can do is walk through it and go pretty quick because similar to last year. Page 2 is just sort of a summary of our finances, how we receive money from the state, gas tax, vehicle registration fees. At the bottom, we talk about our matching program. It's the same as last year, $500,000 for roads, $200,000 for drainage. Turn to page 3. What does that mean for Northfield Township? At the top is $25,002 is road match, $13,732 for your drainage match is made available this year. Turning to page 4, I point on paragraph F. May 20th is when we need a commitment from the township as far as where you want to spend your matching dollars or other projects. This helps ensure our foreman, Mike Mastey, he has 4 townships where we prioritize and get projects scheduled and limestone ordered and other type of work. So if you can let us know what projects you want to commit to by then we can program everything. If you want to do it earlier, that's great too. But we just ask everything's in by May 20th. Page 5 is pretty much the same. Page 6 is sort of a summary of activities in 2015. We received money from the state in 2 different pots: primary roads, Whitmore Lake, North Territorial, versus local roads such as Noller and other roads. So primary, we had routine maintenance on roads for winter traffic. Then we had the big project on North Territorial. The first section from Sutton to Spencer was paid for the Public Act 283. That was a $0.5 mil millage. It was done countywide, and we did about 50 miles of road last year. And then that paid for half, but the other half, we ended up doing just out of our regular funds because we wanted to finish that piece off because North Territorial is about 26 miles from M52 to Wayne County. So our plan was about 8 years ago, try to get North Territorial back together. Again, if you remember, wasn't that long ago, there was a petition at, what's the party store, Edith's Party Store, I think, over 500 people. North Territorial was one of the worst roads. We finally got it sort of back together again. Now our commitment is every year we're going to do 5 miles of chip seal and hold it together. Sort of like painting the Mackinac Bridge. Once we get down the other end, we'll start back. So try to keep it in good to fair condition now that we got it sort of rebuilt. So we did those 2 miles in Northfield last year. We also did the 2 miles in Webster Township. So basically we got it all back together again. So that's pretty exciting. Like I said, we started about 8 years ago when there was federal stimulus dollars. I don't know if you remember those, but there was money made available and that's what we were able to do. We'd like to put it all back together, but it's good news. We finally got North Territorial back together again. On the local roads, same idea. You get maintenance, winter traffic, then dust control where you guys partnered with.
What page you on now?
Same page, just down the bottom of that paragraph, page 6. Looks like this.
Yeah, okay.
Looks like this. You did township-wide drainage, township-wide limestone, and you end up putting nearly $110,000 into the roads, which we do appreciate. As you may be aware or not aware, on local gravel roads or local roads in this township, for the most part, we receive $1,500 per mile per year. So, you know, I acknowledge there's a lot of gravel roads in this county. We have about nearly 700 miles of gravel roads. And when you get $1,500 per year per mile from the state, yeah, they need a lot of work. So that is a challenge we face. And we'll get into a little bit, you know, the state has talked about doing something. Last fall, they did pass a road funding bill, but it's totally inadequate is what they've done. So, but we'll get into that a little later.
You get
But we
money-
do appreciate.
You get money from the county too. don't
What's
you?
that?
You get money from us taxpayers.
Yeah, exactly, and that's
Also.
how we got North Territorial done. We did, those projects on PA 283 were for specific projects, and we got those specific projects done. The tax was levied in February, by August the work was done. So not too often do you see a tax levied and performed within 5 months of being collected. So that's why it was successful, and a lot of people were very appreciative of that. Page 7 is a list of projects. I don't know, Mike, were you going to walk through these?
Once again, my name is Mike. I'm the district foreman for Washtenaw County for Northfield Township. I have roughly 2.5 pages of estimated projects, so I'm going to briefly go through each one. We're going to be on page 7, and the first one I'd like to start with is Jennings Road. It'd be US 23 on-ramp to the end of payment, and work would include roadside berm removal, pulverizing the existing surface, which means grinding it up, rototilling it, leaving it in place as a base, and then the placement of 3-inch asphalt overlay on top of that, along with limestone shoulders and project restoration. Estimated project cost of $133,500. Jennings Road from end of pavement to Kearney Road. Work would include ditching, roadside berm removal, tree trimming, shaping the existing surface, and an 8-inch application of 23A limestone, roughly 6,100 tons, and dust control project restoration go along with that. Estimated project cost of $232,400. Next section of Jennings Road, Kearney Road to the township line. Once again, it would include the same work, berm removal, tree trimming, shaping the surface, also 8 inches of limestone, approximately 1,600 tons. Estimated project cost of $72,800. Next on the list is 6 Mile Road, Earhart Road to Rushton. Once again, berm removal, tree trimming, with shaping the surface, 6 inches of limestone, approximate 2,200 ton, with dust control project restoration, estimated project cost of $81,900. Next on the list would be Dixboro Road, 5 Mile Road to 6 Mile. It would be this project also got presented to Salem Township, and the work would include ditching, roadside berm removal, tree trimming, shaping the surface, 6 inches of limestone, approximately 3,650 tons, with dust control project restoration. Total estimated cost of $107,400. Estimated cost for Northfield Township of $53,700. Next on the list, we have Noller Road, North Territorial Road South, 0.28 miles. Once again, ditching, berm removal, tree trimming, 6 inches of limestone, approximately 1,100 tons, and estimated cost of $60,700. Next section of Noller Road, Northfield Church Road, north 1 mile. Same job scope, ditching, berm removal, tree trimming, 6 inches of limestone, approximately 3,850 ton of 23A with dust control, project restoration, estimated cost of $148,200. Over on page 8, next section of Noller Road from Northfield Church Road to Joy Road. Once again, same job scope with the ditching and berm removal and tree trimming, 8 inches of 23A limestone, approximately 5,330 tons, with project restoration, dust control, estimated project cost of $146,200. Then I'm going to jump to Joy Road. Every Joy Road, we have it from township line to township line. So between Helena and Maple, these would all include the same job scope, the ditching, tree trimming. This Maple to Helena would be 8 inches of limestone at 2,550 ton. Estimated project cost of $119,500. estimated cost to Northfield Township of $59,750. Next section would be Whitmore Lake Road to Hellner Road. 8 inches of limestone on that, approximately 4,950 tons. Estimated project cost of $167,000. Estimated cost to Northfield Township of $83,500. Next section, Joy Road from Noller Road to Whitmore Lake Road. 8 inches of limestone on that as well, approximately 5,010 ton. Estimated project cost of $131,100. Estimated cost for Northfield Township of $65,550. Next section of Joy Road, Pontiac Trail to Noller. 8 inches of limestone as well. Total project estimation of $159,200. Estimated cost for Northfield Township of $79,600. Next section of Joy Road, Earhart to Pontiac Trail. This would be 4 inches of limestone, approximately 2,600 ton. Total estimated cost of $90,400. Estimated cost for Northfield Township of $45,200. On page 9, last section of Joy Road from Dixboro Road to Earhart. This would also be 4 inches of limestone. Total estimated cost of $118,700. Estimated cost for Northfield Township of $59,350. We also have the option of township-wide limestone at $17.37 per ton. And also a township-wide ditching on the list as far as projects go.
Thank you, Mike.
No problem.
Just for the board's information, we don't need to decide. We can certainly discuss it if we want to talk about specific roads. We don't need to decide what we're doing tonight. Typically, we have about $120,000 to $130,000 in the budget for road improvements, and that does not include the match that is provided by the county. So if you look at one, I gave my presentation to somebody in the audience, but somewhere in this presentation you will see that Northfield Township's annual allocation to our roads has gone up since this board has taken office, and I have recommended when we are financially able to increase the allocation every year. With all fairness, we certainly can't do any of the multiple projects on the list. One project itself will blow through our budget. We do try and, as a general rule, we do try and look at other communities when they want to partner with us. So in this case, for this year, Salem Township, we do try to look at that and try to sort of maximize our dollars. So that may be something that I would recommend to the board at a subsequent meeting. I have heard loud and clear, and the gentleman there on Joy Road in the back, he and I have had multiple conversations, and I've heard that loud and clear. And one thing I would ask the Road Commission is try to take a look at some of those areas where it is down to bare dirt. In all fairness, though, I will say it's not the only place in Northfield Township that's all down to all bare dirt. We have indicated to that gentleman that I will recommend to the board that we add some limestone in those areas. Typically what we do, just as a refresher for the board and for those in the audience, typically what we do is we'll do one project a year, and then we'll put the vast majority of the money into just a bulk limestone purchase. And then myself, Mr. Wagner, and Mike all sort of work together to try to figure out where the most critical areas are for that limestone to go. We just physically, or not physically, we just do not have the dollars to tackle roads in the township in the way that we should be. So we will go ahead and do that again this year, and if you're comfortable, in years past you have sort of, the board has just allocated Wagner and I to make the decision as to where those that limestone goes, but we will still bring in front of you if there's any project that we want to address, and the actual voting on the amount of the money that goes into the limestone purchase or into the ditching purchase. Lastly, and then we can move on to another topic, but lastly, I will say, and as I have said for the last 3 years that I have been sitting at this seat, the road issue in Northfield Township will not get resolved until we have a dedicated funding source to tackle that problem. And that is not just the funding source that exists through the county, but that would be some kind of local millage in Northfield Township or some kind of township-wide SAD for roads. I am not suggesting that that is the right approach. I'm not suggesting that the people should or should not vote for something. All I am simply doing is stating a sort of factual position that we are not going to get in the near future at a place where our roads are going to be up to par with the kind of standards that the Road Commission and we all would like, unless we have a dedicated funding option. It's not to say that we should do it, it's just to say that that's really the only solution. The only last thing I would say, and Rory, I don't remember if you touched on this, but I do believe we have at least a verbal commitment that East Shore will be repaved, or it's on the list to be repaved if the county, if that millage comes renewed, from the county. Although it's not the county any longer, it'd have to go to the people now.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a few more things. Just also on the projects, there is on Dixboro, that is a joint project you mentioned already with Salem Township. We did meet with Salem. They seemed somewhat interested. And all along Joy is Ann Arbor Township. We have not met yet with Ann Arbor Township, but I know in the past they have partnered with other communities. So Ann Arbor Township may be interested, so that just depends if you're interested in any of those borderline roads. That's where, half comes from your township, half from the other township.
When are you planning to present to Ann Arbor Township?
April 18th, I believe.
Okay.
So.
Ann Arbor Township last year was interested in doing that joint project. I see no reason that they wouldn't be interested again this year. The reason why we didn't facilitate on the full section of Joy Road is because, frankly, we just didn't have the dollars for it. If we had done that, we would have put every single dollar of our road budget into Joy Road, and we made a conscious choice not to do that. I will say that we did put limestone in certain sections along Joy Road. Now, I didn't physically watch it being placed on Joy Road, and so I do respect the comment earlier, but we did, and I do assume, I'm not saying that the Road Commission didn't put that limestone there, I do assume that they did, but we did add limestone to sections of Joy Road.
Right.
It's not the township's responsibility. The roads are the Road Commission responsibility. We're not supposed to have to pay for any of this.
Right. Actually, per state statute, someone else is responsible. If you do an improvement on a local road, per state statute, over 50% of the money has to come from someone else than the Road Commission. So generally, it's going to be the townships. The citizens obviously could. But the only way really the citizens could do it is this of some kind of unified tax or special assessment.
We are not responsible for the county roads, sir.
No,
You are responsible. Take responsibility. What's the budget? What was the budget you said? 100 and some thousand, Howard?
Yeah, roughly,
Is
roughly
that-
125.
Is that above the calcium chloride, or is that, do we take that out of that? That's what I'm asking.
No, I think that's included.
Which means you subtract that out of the 130, is that it, or is that what you
Yeah,
said?
I mean, if you flip to, there's usually in their presentation, there's a page of,
Dust control is the next page, page 31.
no, usually you
Read it
have
there.
a historic, what we have put into road
Page 20.
projects.
Page 20, yes.
Page 20?
Yes. Yeah. 2011 is 42,000, went to 62,000, went to
So we've
84.
gone, just so the public knows, because I want the public to hear this, 2011 was 42,000 that we put into dollars. 2012 was 62,000. In 2013,
For road construction or for?
total, Mr. Dockett.
Okay.
In
well,
2013,
I just want to be plain here.
I recommended When I got here, I recommended that we start increasing dollars to roads. In 2013, we went to 84,000. In 2014, we went to 93,000. In 2015, we went to 109,000. In 2016, we'll probably be at 120 to 130,000. So we have gone from 42,000, which will probably in 2011 to today, to about 120, 130. That's greater than a 200% increase. Now I realize that those aren't big dollars from the perspective of what communities in Washtenaw County do, but I want the folks to know we really, and I should say this board really recognizes and understands it's something we have to put dollars into, and we're trying to do that.
I don't, but I'd like to know, I'd like to ask the question, would the Washtenaw County Road Commission consider giving the matching funds to us? I think, I'm with this guy out there on this Earhart Road or where, I think you do a lousy job, you know. So how about you giving us the matching funds? We will hire the contractors. We will get someone who's gonna listen to us and guarantee the roads. You people don't, I guess you're all inspectors down there and engineers. That's about all that's down there in that Taj Mahal down there we're all paying for.
Well, there's actually about 65 drivers and about 80 people in operations.
But you don't, but you're not responsible. These contractors do the job, and by the time they drive off the project, they're falling apart. You don't hold anybody's feet to the fire. So, I mean, I would like to think that you should give us the matching funds. We'll hire the people. We'll fix our roads. We'll hold them accountable. Thank you.
If I can continue with the rest of the, page 10 is the dust control, with what you did last year was too solid.
Are you gonna give us, are you gonna matching funds us or no?
What?
Are you gonna give us matching funds?
Yeah, it's
Rather
about
than we give
$40,000
you-
in matching
Rather than
funds.
we give you matching funds?
So you'd rather hire your own contractor and
Yeah,
administer the
yeah,
projects?
Yeah, because I think we can do a much better job than you.
Okay, I guess if you want to do that, have your board send us a letter and we can have that communication.
Yeah, I think we'd be better off. Thank you.
All right. Page 10 is the dust control. Last year you did 2 solid applications, and that's what's shown here as budget as far as contract brine. Page 11 is just a certification map, just showing the primary and local roads within Northfield Township. Page 12 is just what we call the PACER evaluations. This is from 2014, so it isn't updated countywide. And then page 13 is sort of a zoom in on Northfield Township. What if you look in that red section on North Territorial that has now, that'd be considered green now, since we did improve it, it just hasn't been re-rated. So the good, the green roads, and I'll get into East Shore later. There is a potential project next year for East Shore. Next page, 14, is the local paved roads, either subdivision or local paved roads, non-federal aid roads in the township. And on those, what we've been encouraging a lot of townships to do, special assessment districts when the neighborhood decides to rehabilitate or rebuild their roads. This year we have 3 or 4 going, so about every year we have 3 or 4 special assessment districts where the neighborhoods come to us. At the end of the day, it's generally the people in the neighborhood that use those roads, so they're the ones going to benefit. And that's really the only way that communities can afford to have those roads redone, is the people that live in them pay to have them redone. Page 15 is just a page out of our capital improvement plan, and sort of next year, next 5 years as far as reviewing projects. Page 16 is lists of projects, both 15 last year projects and 16. Down below it's sort of color-coded, red and green. Red ones were the projects we did last year with either federal funds or road commission funds. 15 blue is 16, same scenario with either federal funds or road commission. Then below that is what we call the Public Act 283. That has a $500,000, and that's how we did the North Territorial last year. And this year we have a section of a Pontiac Trail that's being done in the southern part of your township with those dollars. You can see sort of county-wide how that is spread out. Page 17 is just a list of those projects and the type of work being done. Page 18 is Michigan's new funding road package. I've been at the Road Commission 25 years. The diesel tax has never changed in those 25 years. And the gas tax had changed one time, 4 cents in 1997. Last year there was Proposal 1 that they tried to raise fuel, move money around, take the sales tax off, and actually try to fund roads. And that was about a $1.8 billion per year increase in road funding. That was what was needed. The legislature obviously got defeated pretty handily because one, it was very confusing, moved a lot of money around, and people just didn't trust how it was all going to work out.
I don't see a page 18 on my, I don't see a page
It's
number.
like this right here.
And no page number.
Right down at the bottom on, but anyways, so the legislature finally did pass something last fall. It was a $1.2 billion assessment was approved as far as funding. The challenge is, if you turn to page, next page is 19, the little table in the back. There was no new money in 16. There's a little bit, 20% in 17, and the light blue is what really is the new revenue. There will be gas tax increase by 7 cents. It's 19 now, eventually go up to 26 cents. For reference, Ohio's been 28 cents for about 20 years. So by 2021, we still won't even catch up to Ohio. They're still going to be 2 cents above us. Then the second part, the darker color, is money that they're going to take out of the general fund to fund the second $600 million for road improvements. But we're not confident at all that that's really going to happen because there's no revenue tied to it. So the plan was, with the economic growth in Michigan in the next 4 to 5 years, there's going to be excess money in the budget to do this. Reality is, between schools, human services, City of Flint, City of Detroit needs, I just don't see. So end of the day, in 2008, there was a study done that we needed $1.2 to $1.5 billion additional in 2008. By 2021, we'll get $600 million. So we'll get 1/3 of what was needed 13 years ago. So, and just yesterday, MDOT came out with a study saying, with the money that has been programmed, the roads will, by 2025, 55% of those will be in poor condition. So I think they've realized what they passed is not enough. So what we're looking at doing, and Howard came to the presentation, is do a road funding initiative. I got some handouts.
Speak into the mic, will you? That's hard.
Do you want me to hand these out? What we're looking at doing is, rather than just a 1 year by 1 year, this would be a 4-year plan, same $500,000, and it'd be voted on by the people. First, the county board would have to put it on the August ballot. So that $500,000 would raise about $7 million. The cities would get their share of it. A portion of it would go, 20% would go for non-motorized, and a part of that would go for would go to the county parks for the border-to-border program and connecting communities. I think you guys have received some connecting communities grants for the non-motorized trail along Barker. They'd reinstitute that. With that, we'd improve over 200 miles of road, and with there is a map showing, and on that is the 2 sections of East Shore would be improved with those funds over the course of the year. It costs the average taxpayer about $35 per year, and you hear again, the map shows what we do. We're working with all the cities, so they're going to put together their plan of what the project would happen in the city of Ann Arbor, city of Ypsilanti, city of Saline, all the cities, so they know exactly where the money is going to be going. So it's really the only way, and at the end of the day, money raised locally stays locally, and you have control over it. When money gets sent to Lansing, gets sent to Washington, D.C., for one, you never get $1 back for every dollar you send there, and two, when that dollar comes back from D.C. or Lansing, there's a lot of strings attached to it. For example, the projects we did on North Territorial, where we pulverized the pavement and put it back down, if we use federal funds for that, rather than $300,000 a mile, it would have been $1 million a mile. And on top of that, rather than just taking care of the pavement, we had to put 6 to 8 foot shoulders, which means new ditches, and all the trees would have come down pretty much clear cut to the right of way. So it definitely would change the whole character of North Territorial, and it costs 3 times as much. So by having money raised locally, it stays locally, and you have a lot more control of how the money gets spent and stuff like that. So right now we're trying to get the word out, trying to make that a success. Like I said, the 1 year has been real successful. We put the signs out, people recognize it, and people see things getting done. And at the end of the day, it's, like I said, about $35 per person is what it generally costs. So we're moving forward with that. We already touched on page 20 here again. You're right. You're not responsible to put any money into roads, and we do appreciate the partnership we have with Northfield Township. And this is, this is huge. It wasn't that long ago, $42,000. Now we're up to over $120,000. Obviously, there's a lot of needs out there, but if you don't start somewhere, it's good to see you staking somewhere, taking those steps, and maybe partnering with other townships so your money goes further is a way to make that happen. Page 21 is just sort of a summary of the private, public roads. And you're not, some of the townships have taken on that responsibility. I strongly encourage on those paved public subdivisions, put that burden back on the community and the neighborhood, because for most townships, you just don't have the revenue to pay for those public paved roads. With that, here to answer any questions you may have for the Road Commission.
The only comment that I have is in regards to Joy Road. I think, you know, accumulative, we could not afford to do all of it, but just like how North Territorial was done, we could do sections by sections every year, depending on how bad the road is.
And that's the same thing. When we started North Territorial, like I said, 8 years ago at M52, each year we did a mile or two, a mile or two, a mile or two, and finally, you know, it comes together. You know, it's like, yeah, you got to start somewhere and figure out a way to get there.
I mean, altogether, it's a very overwhelming, but if you take it piece by piece, and especially if we're sharing costs with another township, even piece by piece is better than not doing anything at all.
Right. And another approach other road townships have done is, Howard mentioned it, a township-wide special assessment district, where Scioto was one that has done that in some other townships. $85 per parcel, everyone pays the same amount, and based on the number of parcels you have. Obviously, you own more than one parcel, you pay more than $85. With that, they did it for 10 years, and that's how they're fixing all their local gravel roads in that township. Other townships have done, you know, half a mil or different millages, which, you know, it's a property tax. But that's one way to fix the roads. Because at the end of the day, it is a huge task, and, you know, people have to decide, is it worth putting a little bit more money and having better roads? Other questions?
Can you explain how the list of projects came to be? Where did that come from? Did you ride through the township and pick out those? Or were
What's the
residents
question?
I don't know.
The projects selected on page 7 and 8, I'll let Mike answer that.
Okay.
She wanted to know how the projects were selected.
The projects come about just over the years, interest in complaints, how much extra maintenance we've had to do on them, Howard asking questions, talking with Bill Wagner. That's how we come up with our list of projects. And this isn't the only thing. If there's something anybody else would like to see an estimate for a project that is not in the book, I mean, we can definitely put something together that somebody would like to see. So if there's interest somewhere else.
In regard to the dirt roads in the township, is there a schedule where they're graded, or when do you determine when to come out and grade them?
We have currently already started west of 23, regardless of what the road looks like now, and with all the rain we've had, those have already all been scraped, and we're currently working east.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
I have a question. In the list of projects, you've got 8 inches of limestone, 6 inches of limestone, and 4 inches of limestone, depending on which road it is. Is that an indicator of how poor condition the road is, or why is there that change?
Defer to Mike again.
Yes, it would be an indicator as far as, like the gentleman mentioned before, we're down to clay, you're down to rock. Some of the other sections towards the east end, I don't have the exact date. Those were projects done quite a few years ago, and just a top dressing of 4 inches to keep the road in good shape is what I recommended. But as you work farther west on Joy Road, everything is more deteriorated.
Okay. And then I have a question about the grading. It seems like the road gets graded and the next day it rains. Do you guys watch the weather as you're doing that, or, you know, and when it rains, then we have potholes again? It doesn't have time to settle into the...
We do try to watch for the weather, but if they call for rain and we wait and then the storm misses us, or we're going to end up never getting anything done. If they're calling for a big storm, a lot of rain, we do try to hold off, but if things seem favorable, we'll scrape, and conditions are changing, we'll stop early in the day.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for Mike. We've got a special problem right now with 8 Mile Road out.
With what?
With the bridge out. And Jennings Road is taking a beating. And, you know, because that's the only way for anybody to get around it. I'm wondering if you're doing any special, trying to watch Jennings Road, Barker Road, west.
Barker Road.
Barker is the only road you can come in on. You have to come down like South Hamburg Road, or, you know, in order to get into town, because you can't get across the bridge.
The only piece of Barker that...
I'm talking about where the school is, you know what I'm
Yes.
talking about?
Yes.
Well, from there west, it's real bad, and it's not gonna get any better as long as that bridge is out, and I think it needs to be, you know, somebody needs to be watching it pretty close, because, yeah, but,
Oh,
yeah.
hopefully it's those same concerns.
But there's an extra problem there, because the bridge is out, so that's my question.
Okay.
Are you?
Yes,
are
Barker
you-
Road's been patched numerous times, and what I have jurisdiction over, Barker Road is from the end of pavement to Kearney Road. That's my cutoff line.
Okay.
So as far as what maintenance
The
has been...
residents in Webster you're talking about?
Correct.
Well, it's still Washtenaw, no, I guess it would.
It's a different district.
Yeah, but it's still Washtenaw County.
Correct.
So we need to have you guys work together on that road, because it's terrible.
It is.
You do have the road in red, so that's a good thing.
It is. It is, and I'm going to applaud Mr. Dockett on that. We actually called MDOT and specifically asked MDOT if they could identify some funds in the US 23 project to look at getting some limestone down on that road. They indicated that they were unable to do that from the 23 funding project. I don't know if they had spoken with Jim, thank you, Jim Harmon, about that, or about spoken with you, Roy, but I think even if they have or haven't, I think that's a conversation that, Roy, you need to have with Mark Sweeney or Paul Adjabar at MDOT, and we need to figure out how to get some improvements on Barker Road, even going into Webster Township, because that is a really bad section of dirt road, and it is extremely heavily traveled now with the bridge being out. We get complaints on it on a daily basis, so I really think that has to be an area of emphasis to try to come up with something creative.
Most of Barker's paved right in Washtenaw County. Almost all paved.
Right.
Excuse me, I meant to say Northfield Township, but Webster Township is not that small.
And you raise a good point. I get approached on that. I mean, the other thing is, there was an insurance, I mean, obviously it's an insurance claim, so why wouldn't we? It is a cost to us, all the people, and there was a trucker who caused some damage to the bridge, and they take it out. So is there a creative way to take it out? Because it is a cost to all the citizens, because this trucker took the bridge out. Right. Why should we, as citizens of the society, pay for that, something that they did? Well, I look at doing that, because I would agree. Yeah, if there's more traffic, it's going to be more damage, and it's going to take additional grading, additional speed that up.
I do agree, and I do agree that you and MDOT should, and I had a client meeting with MDOT on Monday on the bridge issue. I do agree that you guys should look to recoup those costs, but as the County Road Commission, we have an existing condition that
is significant, and so even if there's no insurance money on that particular issue, I really think it behooves us to identify that as a special case scenario, a significant jump in traffic that no one can get around. I mean, there are individuals that cannot travel any other road because that bridge being out other than Barker. We really do need to get some improvements on there.
Right. And I mean, last year we had a project down in Saline Township, took out 2 bridges on Austin Road, same thing. The detour was 20-some miles on pavement. Obviously, a lot of people end up using the non-paved roads down there. So we did have to do stepped-up routine maintenance on those gravel roads because there is going to be more people in the same situation here. Especially at this point, I'm not sure there's really a timeline of when the 8-mile bridge is going to be replaced. So they're just going to build a new one. That's all up. Yeah, it could be a year.
they're gaining clarity in that issue. They're not ready to make a final decision, but they're gaining clarity.
Okay.
All right, does anyone else have any more questions? No, I think we've covered everything. Thank you for your presentation
All right.
tonight, appreciate it.
Yep, thanks for having us.
All right, that takes us on to our next presentation, which is our joint meeting with the Planning Commission.
Madam Supervisor?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd just like to note that Commissioner Stanalicho did join us.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, the joint meeting with the Planning Commission regarding the sewer capacity, and we have Brian Rubel here from Tetra-Tech for the presentation. Welcome, Brian. Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you. We're going to talk about a couple studies that we've been working on the last few months, and I did bring my colleague Joe Sywick with me tonight. May not need Joe, but if we do, he's here. So, and I have a little. I think you have a pretty big package that was given out ahead of the meeting, and I've tried to condense it into some key points, and I have those printed, so I will pass those around, and we'll talk from this summary. So, start that here. So I won't go too detailed to the materials get around, but the two studies we'll talk about is looking at further design steps to a wet weather storage tank at the wastewater treatment plant. And the second project then was analyzing the trunk sewers in the township to accommodate both existing flows and potential new connections to those trunk sewers. So they're in your package, they're in separate documents. In this summary, I've combined it into a single summary, and we'll break the discussion into those two pieces as we go. So I think they're almost around now. And so the first analysis was for the wet weather storage tank, and we called it a preliminary design because we did investigate more specifics on the tank from prior work. So we looked at materials and things like that, locations, what components would be needed on the tank. We worked with the treatment plant staff. We took a field visit to another facility that had a wet weather storage tank to pick their brain what works well for them, and used it to formulate our thoughts. And we concluded our work with giving a very detailed opinion of cost to construct a tank. And I'll come back and I'll start discussion on the tank. The sewer capacity analysis, then we looked at your existing connections to major trunk sewers, and then we looked at 4 or 5, if you count Green Oak, areas of new development and how they may impact your existing sewers, and what accommodations you may need to make to accommodate new connections in those trunk sewers. So I'll come back to that. That'll be the second half of the discussion. So on page 2, the tank summary. And we'll talk, there's a little graphic a little bit later on that will show you, I think many of you reviewed this with me many months ago, but it'll show you what happens during wet weather and why a storage tank is needed. So what the state of Michigan requires is any sewer owner to control a storm up to almost 4 inches, 3.9 inches in fact. It's an extremely large storm, very infrequent, but they require the owner of that sewer system to manage the flow so that you do contain it during that storm and do not overflow to a stream or a lake. It's a pretty high bar you need to accommodate. And unfortunately, sewers do have leaks and so forth, so when it does rain, the flow rate in the sewer climbs very, very dramatically. And again, we have a little graph of that a little bit later on. So we hope that they're dry, but unfortunately, as they age, as cracks and so forth are discovered, they do start to leak, and that rainwater gets in there and causes a real management issue. At the plant, a similar thing occurs. The flows increase, and Mr. Hardesty and his staff really have a challenge to maintain that flow during wet weather. Thus far, they've done an excellent job of maintaining that. They have not been fined or otherwise reprimanded by the state, but they really scramble when that does happen, the larger rains. The other criterion is you can look at a 3.9-inch storm, or you can do more of a statistical analysis and look at overflowing from your system no more than once every 10 years. So it's kind of an alternate approach, and we as engineers can go through both of those scenarios and help you pick a size. And they'll let you get by with the smaller of those two sizes. So we looked at the more detailed one this time just to see if there was a way to make the project a little smaller. And what we determined was using the statistical approach, you might be able to decrease that to about 1.3 million gallons. And about a year ago, we were talking about 1.7. So we think we can make it a little bit smaller. As we put more time into it, we can refine that estimate a little bit. It might be prudent. 1.3 is the bare minimum. So we wrote a report maybe over using 1.5 million. It's just rounded up a little bit to the next 500,000 gallons. It gives us a little factor of safety for new defects that were to develop and things like that. And really a 1.5 million gallon tank doesn't cost materially more than a 1.3 million gallon tank. So we wrote a report over around a 1.5 million gallon storage tank. The other thing that's unique about your situation is the flows into the treatment plant are pumped. So the line is under pressure, and you could then afford to build a storage tank above ground. The pressure allows you to fill a tank that sits above the surface of the ground. If it were just a gravity sewer underground, you would need to build the tank either underground or pump it a second time. So an above ground tank is cheaper to build than an in-ground tank. You don't have to dig this massive hole to build a tank around. So you have the luxury of putting an above ground tank in there, and that will save money as well. We'll talk a little bit about the size. Yeah, and it just so happens it's about 25 feet high, plus I might be off by a foot or two, and it's about, if it's circular, it'd be about 100 feet in diameter. I'll show you a picture of that a little bit, but I don't think you'll see it from very far away. I mean, it's not this monument there at the wastewater plant. It's higher than any other building, but not a massive structure. So as far as materials of the tank, there really are two choices. There is reinforced concrete that's constructed in place. You build forms and you pour concrete and you build a tank that way. Very reliable material. It's used for tanks all over the state, all over the country. The only downside is it's somewhat costly because there's a lot of labor involved. You're building it on site. And it's about $3 a gallon is a good rule of thumb for a concrete tank. Another common material to build a tank would be a steel tank. And it's not only steel, but it's lined with glass to protect the steel from corroding. So it's the same material that's used in a silo, an agricultural silo. They have adapted that technology to use for water purposes, and it's been used for water for well over 40 years. So there's a pretty good track record for steel. I know of 8 or 10 treatment plants, and one we went to in Macomb County had a steel tank. They've had theirs in place for about 10 years. The advantage to the steel is it's manufactured in a factory and just pieced together on site. So there's quite a bit less labor involved, less material involved, and as a result, the cost can be quite a bit less than a concrete tank. It's about $2 a gallon is a good rule of thumb. And yeah.
Well, would a concrete tank last longer than a steel tank if we had to replace it or maintain the steel?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Maybe paying more per gallon, but if it lasts longer.
Yeah, we did look at that. Certainly a good rule of thumb for a lifetime of a concrete tank is about 50 to 100 years, maybe up to 100 years for a concrete tank. A steel tank, we know will last at least 50 years. They have been in place for well over 40. It's a little harder to put a timeline on it because they have only been around for about 40 plus years. So I would say they're fairly equivalent. I do believe a steel tank will have a little bit less maintenance than a concrete tank. Concrete does crack, it spalls. The plant does have a concrete tank that requires some fairly regular maintenance on it. A steel tank will not be free of maintenance, but it will be, I think, much less. So, you know, the life cycle cost is not an exact science, but I believe the steel will still be lower over the whole life of the tank.
Mr. Rubel, the concrete tank, is it the style that has the lines that are going through it that need to be cleaned and purged like once a year?
Lines being water lines?
Oxygen lines that go through to pump oxygen through it for its filtration system?
Some storage tanks do have air lines that add air to the wastewater so that it's easier to treat when it's sent back to the plant. I think in this case, the water will only sit in that tank a day or two or three under most scenarios, and I don't think that would justify adding air to it. But that is a good question. Air is added to many tanks. So in this case, I think we can get away from that. So I think in discussion with the treatment plant staff, our experience, we think a steel tank would perform very well for Northfield Township should you go in that direction. Some of the other factors that we looked at in a tank, I won't go into excruciating detail here, but these tanks will need instrumentation associated with it to record the level of water in the tank. There'll be means to divert water from the plant to the tank when the plant flow rate becomes high. So those sorts of things were considered and outlined in the report. Our best recommendation to how to proceed with those. The tank will need to be cleaned periodically. Obviously, wastewater has lots of undesirable things in it, and if you put it into a tank and drain the tank, some of that will remain behind. So maybe not every storm, but every other storm or so, the tank will need to be hosed down, and we call that flushing. And we outlined a means to do that. Somewhat manual, but we would get water to that, and then an operator could use a fire hose to spray off the interior and try to get that solid material back to the plant. Stairs. Some of the instruments will be mounted high in the tank. The flushing might be accommodated from a high level to get to the far side of the tank. So you could either have a ladder or you could have stairs. We think the stairs is a modest cost above a ladder and certainly would provide a greater level of safety for the operators. Much easier to climb a set of stairs than a vertical ladder. So we've suggested stairs be included. And these tanks do come with a aluminum dome cover on them, and the cover provides two benefits. It controls odors, so if any of your neighbors should not notice this tank any more than they notice the wastewater plant now.
It's in Greenock Township.
Well, very good. That's yes, and it also keeps. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm an old-time guy, and I know I'm going to surprise people, but I've been reading up on some of these plants that are going for methane gas. You know, making methane gas out of they're not putting in these tanks. They're doing a different thing and making methane gas and making electricity that they use themselves. I mean that might be way out there, but I'm just wondering, is there anything to think about?
Yeah.
At this time, rather than if we're thinking about the future, are we thinking about that? So that's. Do you know any?
Yeah, I think that's a different project.
Oh, that's what I wanted to
They,
know, what
they,
you think
they,
about that.
actually, the solids that are removed from the waste stream generate quite a bit of methane when they decompose. And some of the larger plants do capture that methane, burn it to turn a turbine, a generator, and produce electricity from that. I am almost certain that that would not be cost effective for a plant of your size.
I just wondered.
That's a great question. They are extremely maintenance intensive. This methane gas is very wet. There's a lot of humidity in it, and it's extremely corrosive. So these systems tend to work very well for the first month or two, and then they require a big investment of time and materials to keep them functioning. So
There's a lot of places using them.
yes, yes, many places do use that and invest that labor into that. I don't think that would be cost effective for Northfield right now. Maybe when the technology changes. So a dome cover also would protect ice from getting into the tank and keep the plumbing a little bit more secure. Yeah, Marilyn?
I wondered how many days a year would there be any water in the tank? I mean, we're not surpassing our capacity on a regular basis, are we, Tim? No. So right now, I mean, how many days a year would there be any water in the tank?
It depends on the year.
Maybe 4 or?
I mean, it could be a week at a time. It could be 3, 4 storms a year. Then it could be weeks, 2 weeks. It's just hard to predict.
Okay. When was the last time we actually had so much water that you had to release into the river without treating it?
But we have never not treated some of the waste. What happens is our plant is staged in different stages, different processes to do different.
Has he got a mic?
Sorry, I don't have a mic. I hope I'm speaking loud enough.
So you can hold back some?
Well, no, we don't hold it back, but what happens is at a couple different stages, we actually bypass around a couple of the stages, and then it is mixed back together before it hits the stream, and chlorine is added to kill any bacteria that has gotten through, and then we feed another chemical to take the chlorine back out of it. So there's never any raw sewage that is discharged. There's just partial treatment that hasn't happened at the very end.
Okay, thank you, thanks.
I kind of have a follow-up to Ms. Chalkley's question on that. You had mentioned earlier in regards to the discharge or the events that, let me just get back to the page.
Top of page 2, maybe?
Yeah, I think it was. So, you know, you know, a 10-year event. How many of those events have we had in the last 5 years where we have had an exceeded amount of what our plant can handle? I mean, the events that we're experiencing are not 1 and 10-year events, are they? I mean, I remember from the last time we did this a year ago, my understanding is when we had a wet weather event that was substantial, we were experiencing challenges in processing through every step of the way our wastewater treatment. Is that correct?
If your question is, are we experiencing challenges? Yes, that's true. Every year.
On a regular basis?
From my recollection, yes. We have not had a 3.9-inch rain event every year, no.
Right.
I think we've had one close to that a couple years ago, but we get a number of 2 or 3-inch rains, or 2-inch rains that, like I said, we have to bypass part of the treatment at that point.
And Tim, if we have large snowfalls, because this is not just rain that we're looking at, we're also looking at snowfall.
Yes.
And I just looked it up real quick to see what our average precipitation per year is, and Ann Arbor's quite high at 38 inches per year.
Yeah. I haven't I haven't tracked what our average precipitation
So,
is.
I mean,
if we have flooding that, to me, if we have flooding that comes out of Horseshoe Lake or any surrounding areas, that's going to impact the treatment plant, right?
That's correct.
I guess my question comes, if we're bypassing stages, because we are in where an occurrence happens where we have to, on a, when I say regular, I don't mean weekly basis, but on a regular occurrence, we run a real challenge if we do get one of those 10-year event rainfalls, and a substantial challenge. And I mean, we shouldn't be in a position of having to bypass any stages, but I do understand the reality of where we're at. So, all right, I just wanted to ask that as well as a follow-up to Ms. Shockley's question. Thank you.
Okay, so Ann Arbor, the number of very heavy precipitation events has increased 41% between 1981 and 2010. So we're getting more faster, which is a concern. And so we may get 4 inches of rain or something. That rain shouldn't really be going into our sewer system. It really shouldn't be, unless we're talking about infiltration and inflow, which is a whole different problem than what we're dealing with the storage tank. So if we had a good sealed system, we wouldn't get all of that rain. Even though we had heavy rain events, it shouldn't really be coming into our system unless, can we do some maintenance on that would reduce our problem?
You can do studies, infiltration inflow studies. I've done them my whole career. They can be done. They take quite a long period of time and quite a big commitment to see them through. They will help. There's no doubt we'll find a few things. The challenge with infiltration inflow is getting all of it. It is nearly impossible to get it all.
Brian, why don't you give a ballpark? I know we won't hold you to the number, but a ballpark of what an INI is.
It's generally 2 different studies. You do what they call an infiltration inflow study that measures flow, and it makes inferences about where your hot spots are and which areas should be followed up in the field with more detailed work. And then you return many months later, maybe a year later, and you actually do quite a bit of field work to try to find all these leaks. You might run a TV camera through. You might go door to door to look at downspouts that are improperly connected, or sump pumps in the basement that are improperly connected. All those take quite a bit of time. That said, I have not put a firm figure on it, but they are hundreds of thousands of dollars of time and many years to see through.
Okay. How old are our systems?
Most of a good chunk of your system dates back to the early 1970s. So we're well over 40 years for a good share of your system. Now, clearly there are parts that are newer.
And is there regular maintenance done on those pipes?
There is. Every year, we have a goal of televising 10,000 feet of sewer. A couple years ago, we actually found quite a few leaks, and we had every one of those repaired. They went in and blew up an epoxy seal to seal those up. But, we have 22 miles, and we do as much as we can do every year.
Okay, that's good. Thanks.
Well, if we could maybe hold back some of the questions. Brian has actually quite a long presentation. We want to make sure we get enough time for him and for all the questions, if you guys don't mind. Brian, keep going.
Yep, absolutely. On the bottom of page 3, I just included a little photograph of this tank is in Richmond, Michigan. It is the same size as your tank would be. So that would give you some idea. That's 90-some feet in diameter and 25-plus feet high. It's got the dome on it and the stairs. If then we superimpose that on a aerial image of the plant, at this scale it's kind of hard to read, but we were thinking the best spot on the site would be at the very west end, near the railroad right away. If you're familiar with the plant, there's an empty spot right there that would work out. Page 4, to wrap up the tank discussion, the cost to, and these are total costs, contractor cost, material cost, professional cost, some contingency even in there for things that we can't put a finger on right now. I think 2.8 million would be a safe number to budget for such a tank. Hope is that would come in less, but I feel that's a good number to budget. And the schedule to construct a tank is very dependent on how you fund it, what loans you might choose to fund it. That is the state revolving fund loan. This would be eligible for that, but it also requires these I&I studies to be performed. That would push out the schedule several years, in my opinion, to do all those studies first. Just not saying that's the bad idea to go that way, it's just one consideration of several. If you were to privately fund it, outside of SRF that is, I think you could about a year and a half, 18 months plus or minus would be a good time frame to design it, have it bid, have the steel produced and installed by a contractor. Somewhere around a year and a half.
If it's steel.
If it's steel. If it's concrete, it probably will be a little longer. As far as where you would head here, at where we stand today, we have not taken any soil borings at that location. That's just prudent to do. It would help design the foundation for the tank. I don't expect it to be bad soils. We've done many projects at the plant. We've been able to do those all with common foundations. But if we did find something unusual, it might raise the cost a little bit, but I think that's unlikely. So getting soil borings would be a logical next step to confirm that. We should confirm how we're going to go with the funding. We've had one discussion with your financial advisor. I think some more need to happen. And then you would proceed with designing the tank. That itself would take 3 to 6 months, something like that, to design it and be ready for contractor bids. So,
Brian, does that complete the equalization basin presentation? Okay. So just real quick, I know Brian's got a lot more information, and the conveyance capacity study is really going to be interesting. We've been talking about the equalization basin for quite some time, and I think this board is sort of generally in agreement that it's something that we need, or at least I would say that this board recognizes that the need has been discussed, if you will. I guess I shouldn't speak for your individual opinions. What I will say is over the last few days, I've been doing some research on the funding possibility of this equalization basin. It is my opinion that this actually can be funded internally, obviously by floating a bond, but it is my opinion that this project can be funded internally without any increase to sewer connection fees and without any increase to quarterly sewer connection or quarterly sewer fees. We have a $555,000 note or debt that comes due in 2017, in the middle of 2017. And about 51% of that debt, between 50 and 60% of that debt is off of the existing sort of, if you will, general fund of the sewer department. Now, the sewer department is not called a general fund, it's an enterprise fund, but within their general operating statements, there's about 50 to 60% of those dollars on that debt. In just a quick back-of-the-envelope calculation, we think that that this board or subsequent boards can fund the equalization basin and actually reduce the current debt load that exists on the sewer department as of today. And that the reason being is because a 20-year amortization schedule on a $2.8 million bond will be less than the debt that is currently going to be coming off the books in 2017. So the good news is that I believe that the room is available in the budget to fund this project without any contribution from the general fund and without any need to raise sewer quarterly fees. Now, I'm not saying quarterly fees in the sewer department will never rise. That obviously is a function of maintenance over time. But I think we do have the dollars available. So wanted to throw that out to you. I know it's preliminary, and I know you didn't have any of that in your packet because it was something that I mostly was working on over the last few days. And then, as Brian indicated, we did have a call on it yesterday to discuss it amongst the group of consultants. So, you know, that is for your information. You know, in general, I think this is, you know, I certainly understand some of the comments of if it's not broke, don't fix it. I get that. I also am an individual who says, you know, it's difficult, and I try not to punt the problem down the road. This is an issue that we've been dealing with for 28 years. It was first discussed in 1988. You know, could we get away without building it? I think you probably could continue to get away without building it. Is it something that needs to be built and would help the plant perform more efficiently and optimally without having any bypass? There's no question about that. So you're welcome to sort of ask detailed questions of Tim on that, but you know, we've had some conversations to that effect already, and I sense that that's his opinion. So with that, I will turn it back over to Brian to continue.
All right, I was waiting for a point in the discussion tonight to bring this up, and I think it's appropriate right now before we go any farther. There needs to be some discussion at the township board level about whether or not Northfield Township should continue to be the owner of this wastewater treatment plant. Some of the residents brought up some really good points when the expansion of the sewer was at Whitmore Lake Road and North Territorial about the township bonding for these types of expansions. In looking at this, I agree that Northfield Township residents as a whole should not be on the hook for things that they don't get a service from. A majority of the township, size-wise, does not gain any benefit from the sewers. Green Oak, however, a portion of their township does. The expansion that we're talking about doing, we can't make Green Oak cover the cost or any portion of that, even though a portion of their residents actually get a benefit from that. So in thinking about this, I think seriously some consideration needs to be done about possibly spinning off the wastewater treatment plant into a regional wastewater authority that actually has Green Oak involved with it, including Northfield Township, so that Green Oak and the residents there that gain a benefit from this actually have some skin in the game for the expansion of this plant. And I think we need to go back even further, because I don't think anybody here, including myself, really knows the background of the lawsuit that was involved that had the REUs that were granted to Green Oak under the terms of that lawsuit, what that was specifically about, and why there's a certain percentage that's guaranteed to them, but there's no additional costs that they as a community need to be included into the expansion of this plant that they benefit from. So, I mean, frankly, as a resident of Northfield Township, I think it's a huge liability for us to continue to look at this and build upon this and monitor this as our own plant, when in fact it should end up being more regionally looked at. And I think that something needs to be talked about before you start talking about bonding out $3 million that uses the full faith and credit of the township. So there's just something out there that I think everybody that has responsibility should be looking at, because we have no way to make the residents of Green Oak pay for this expansion other than through sewer, you know, the cost of sewer taps and the cost of the service. And it's just like a garbage service, is that the rest of the people up the road don't pay for your garbage service, all right? But what we're doing is by taking out this money, we're actually burdening people that don't get any benefit from the sewer system itself, which I think is unfair.
Just want to make a quick clarifying point, not to agree or disagree with Mr. Stanleychko. The dollars that I was speaking of is not general fund dollars. It is sewer district dollars, and those dollars are only generated from the proceeds of the sewer district itself. So with what I was speaking to, it's not to sort of agree or disagree, Mark, with what you were saying, but what I was speaking to, I just want everybody to be clear, is existing dollars, balance sheet dollars that exist in the sewer fund, that I believe that fund would have the ability to finance this project. That's all I'm saying. And so just for the audience, that would not come from general fund dollars, which means that if you're not on the sewer plant, you wouldn't pay.
And not also to disagree with you, I think, you know, you just made the statement that Green Oak is responsible. You know, how do we get them to be responsible for the sewer today? How are we going to get them to be responsible for a wastewater authority district? So it's the same thing.
No, wastewater authority is the communities that are involved. Actually, it's a spin. You spin it off so that it has its own borrowing authority, and so therefore, if they need to expand, they can actually borrow within themselves, and not tap into the communities that they service, and they can end up having each individual community can either appoint or however it is it's set up. They do that, and they just did it in Detroit, and
I do understand how it's done, but you have to get the township to agree to do it.
I agree. But that's why you need to go back and look and see at this lawsuit and see why it was agreed to, and look into seeing they can't hold you hostage as an owner without having an increase in costs or something that they have to pay because we have to expand our system. Because of these things that were agreed to, and I don't think anybody on the board or any of us know why it is that it was actually agreed to. So I think there needs to be some research back.
I think it had to do, I remember reading that was given to us at one time, that whole case. That's kind of what brought all this up, because we were actually legally obligated to put in this basin and do some things.
Yeah,
because
back in 2002.
Yeah, and I thought it had to do with the way the water was being released, or the direction that the water was going. But I don't know how much of a percentage compared to Northfield did they utilize or are they entitled to? I mean, is it a half and half? Or?
Yeah, I don't know the percentage if you include the existing homes. I think the agreement was 200,000 gallons a day, as I recall. So.
But I'm just saying, I think it still needs to be looked into. I think it's the fiduciary responsibility of you guys as the township board members to look out for the taxpayers of Northfield Township. And as of right now, I don't think that that's even been talked about. But the other liability is that if there is an event that pollutes the river for whatever reason, Northfield Township residents are on the hook for that contamination, and that's a liability. But it's not all just being generated by Northfield Township residents. I think you really need to look at this as an overall scheme, the big picture down the road. If this continues to increase in costs, why is it that Northfield Township residents are the ones bearing the cost of this, when in fact other communities are getting a benefit from it?
Thank you, Mark, for your comments. If anyone doesn't mind, we'll have Brian finish up his presentation, and then we can have further discussions on that another time.
So we'll talk about the trunk sewer evaluation. And there's really 5 steps to it at the top of page 5. They're not in clockwise order necessarily, but at the top we estimated existing demands to your trunk sewers. We estimated sewer capacities, and then we subtracted that to calculate the available capacities. And I'll go through these in more detail. Then we talked about future demands, growth areas, and then wrapped it up with what improvements might be needed to accommodate both your existing and your future demands. So bottom of page 5, as far as existing demands, we took a look at customers, did a count of houses and businesses connected to various branches. We did not do any flow monitoring as part of this study. We were, again, trying to squeeze as much information out of what you have already without going and collecting new information. But so we assumed a flow rate per REU. That's in your township standard, so that gets us pretty darn close. Then we kind of talked around it a little bit today that wastewater flows are not static. They're not the same throughout the day. They're not the same during a rainstorm. They go up and down, and in particular during a rainstorm, they go up quite a bit. So we have to look at the peak conditions. The sewer has to convey both the conditions at the nighttime when there's very few users, and that has to convey the conditions right during that 4-inch rain and get it all the way to the plant. In this analysis, we used a ratio of average to peak of 4. We assumed the peak was about 4 times the average. We could talk about that for hours on end. That seems to match most of the big storms you get at the plant. That was the main reason we used that. It also kind of matches the literature for older systems. I will tell you, I have seen systems that can peak as high as 10 times during a rainfall. Yours is not nearly that wet, but we used 4. That's the theme of my slide. We used 4. And when we made these assumptions, we did compare it to the plant, and we come very close to matching both the average flow and the peak flow at the plant. So although some of these numbers are assumed, we validated against some measurements, and we feel like we've gotten good value from these assumptions. And again, on page 6, just to demonstrate graphically this phenomena, what happens when it rains. The red line at the bottom is what happens in a typical dry weather day. We don't even need to look at the units of flow. At nighttime, it's at the trough at the bottom of that curve, and then in the morning you see a peak when people are getting ready to go to work. In the evening you see a little bit of a peak when they get home for dinner, and then it decreases back to the nighttime again. When it rains, and that's where the blue and the green come into play, the flow gets higher. So we superimposed 2 different days on top of the grid here. We showed an average day in red, a wet weather day in blue and green, and you can see that there was a very strong peak during rainfall. And in this example, you see that ratio of 4. Again, the ratio of the peak to the average is about 4. So backs up what I just said about that assumption. So that's how we come up with the flow from your existing system. Then we have to estimate the actual capacity of the pipes that convey the water to the plant. There are 2 main factors that go into that. The diameter of the pipe. The larger the diameter of the pipe, the more water you can, all other things equal, you can bring to the plant. And the steeper that the pipe is sloped, very steeply sloped pipe can take a lot more water than a flat pipe. Those are the 2 main factors. The roughness of the pipe also comes into play, how smooth it is. A smooth pipe takes more water than a rough pipe. We have to assume that. We don't have measurements of that, so we had to assume things were in pretty good shape. Things are pretty smooth. There could be some areas that have roots and other debris, and that assumption wouldn't be very good there, but it would take many measurements to figure out.
We don't have any corrugated stuff, do we?
No, not in the sanitary. Yeah. So with those 2 existing demands on your system and the capacity of the pipe, we produced figure 1, and you have a large version of that. Mr. Thomas is unfolding his. But figure 1 shows the available capacities along various trunk sewers, and they're in white boxes, and we converted that to REU. So our calculations use a numerical value of flow, but we converted that to REUs, this representation of a residential equivalent unit. So you can see then throughout that just a few highlights. the east trunk area around the lake, there's some modest capacity, 100 to 400 roughly REUs of available capacity. More REUs could connect before you use up all of the capacity, is what I mean by that. The North Territorial pump station area, that has 1,251 REUs of capacity. There aren't many connections there right now, so right now there's...
What page you on now?
I'm on the top of page 7. So there's a lot of capacity there at North Territorial to take new connections.
Yeah, but I don't see what he's talking about.
Yeah, now
It's over there. Okay.
the concern
Yeah,
is near the plant, Barker Road and North. We are calculating that the existing customers' use is approximately equivalent to the capacity of those pipes. It's within a few percent. It's within our ability to estimate it, that's for sure. So if there is a concern, it's right there at the downstream end of the system. Again, Barker Road to 8 Mile Pump Station. Right in here is the spot where we show you're right there. What you have connected is using all the capacity that you have. So from that, we go on and do some other types of calculations. But it's kind of important to lay that groundwork for what comes next.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just to give a little bit more context. Just to give a little bit more context from how to think about this and kind of how to understand this. Think about the system as two systems. So when we go into Brian's sort of analysis now on the existing conveyance and improvements that would be needed in the conveyance system in order for certain things to happen or certain properties to develop, think about it as two systems. Everything to the north of Horseshoe Lake is essentially a gravity system that funnels to this existing blue pipe. Okay? Everything at North Territorial goes along a conveyance pipe that is a force main, which is this green dotted line, which goes all the way up and stops at 8 Mile and then is pumped to the plants. So when we think about the conveyance system, we need to think about essentially two conveyance systems. One that's isolated at North Territorial, and then everything else in the township.
It's a good way to look at it. And yeah, when North Territorial was built, it ran all the way past this gravity system. That's a big input at North Territorial. So to avoid the gravity sewer, they took it all the way to the 8 Mile pump station.
Yeah, why didn't they just take it to the plant and then that much further to the plant?
Well, that was kind of a long-term plan, was to take it to the plant. It was part of the plan as North Territorial continues to grow with new customers, and I'll come back to this. Yeah, the plan was to bypass the 8 Mile pump station and just have that force main direct right to the wastewater plant. I'll come back to that. So, on the bottom of page 7, we looked at, it's listed 4, there's actually kind of a 5th that we looked at, potential development areas. The first one is the Leland Farm in purple or pink, near the North Territorial pump station, west of that.
I don't want to be disagreeable, but I'm colorblind. I wish when you guys would make these maps, you'd put like number 1 or number 3 or number, it's really difficult when you're colorblind.
Well, there is a box that says Leland Farm, so that maybe that's your cue to find it. Then the Kelly parcel, we use Kelly Green for that, I guess, right by the Township Hall.
Oh, Kelly.
And Wildwood Lake is in yellow on the west side of 23. And then, the 7 Mile Road area in blue. is over here. So we looked at growth.
I understand, but if it had a number, 1, 2, 3 or something, that's what I'm trying to say.
The little boxes is 7 Mile, wouldn't? Okay, seems like that would,
Those numbers.
seemed like that would get you there, so.
And just so everybody knows, the reason why, I hope I'm not jumping to something you would have already said. The reason why we chose these parcels, for everybody's knowledge, is these are the large parcels that are identified in the master plan as being zoned MDR. So if anybody has a question of why did you pick these specific areas, those were the areas that we looked at. And then I think Brian was going to get to this, but we took out some of the areas even that we looked at because we know from personal experience they're either not going to be developed or they're already in conservation easement type of zoning.
And we did include another 104 REUs from Green Oak are on the north side of the lake. That is in an agreement you have with Green Oak. That's one of the agreements you have with Green Oak, is that 104. So that has to be connected to your gravity system. We did look at both a low level of development density and a higher level of density, just to give a range. We talked about that when we started, and we did do that. Most of our analysis, though, proceeded to use the higher level of development as a worst case. It may turn out that the demand for those parcels is less, and then the improvements needed, if they're needed, would be less or smaller. So the conclusion is we have, quite a, if you added all these up, there's 540, 250, 700, 800, another 120 here, 920. This is probably high, but maybe 380. So it's about 1,300 REUs at the high end in all 4 of those. If you add the 104 from Green Oak, that's 1,400. That's a pretty significant number of new connections. And what we found is, as I mentioned, if this downstream pipe was, carrying now, had just the capacity to have what you need now, then clearly if you added another 1,400, you would need an improvement there at the downstream end. And so that's clearly what we found. The East Trunk area, again, and this is all on Figure 2. Okay, it's all on Figure 2. I think there was a smaller level of improvement on that branch. Yeah, thank you, Howard. There was a very small improvement on the East Trunk branch. The upper end had more capacity, so fairly small improvement needed on that side. Again, the North Territorial area, if you just served the 542 from the Leland property, the maximum level there's capacity there now. The previous analysis showed 1,250 available, so there is capacity to take more there. Now, we come back to the assumption that we talked about many months ago, is that capacity is allocated to the special assessment district, so we have to talk about whether that would be allowed, but from a pure capacity standpoint, there would be capacity at the North Territorial pump station for the Leland farm. Okay. There is a table in the report and also on the figure, and I included it in the summary, and it actually has 9 improvements, and it has an X that indicates which development would be responsible for some share of that improvement. Now, that might sound high. 3 of those actually are just stubs to get from the property to the existing sewer system. So those aren't improvements to the existing infrastructure. They're just improvements that a property owner would need to make to get to your system. So of those 9, 1, 2, 3 of those are there. So there's 6 identified that are on the existing infrastructure.
I don't want to back you up too much, but why would Leland go to North Territorial and then down? Why wouldn't it go down to 6 Mile or like the school does, or what? Why?
Well, I don't think.
Why are we going?
I don't think there
south?
would. This is only an 8-inch pipe, a much smaller pipe here.
What is only an 8? Is that the school you mean, or is that?
Yeah, yeah, up in that area.
Okay.
Very small pipe to the north.
Okay, so it would have to back up to North Territorial.
Yeah, it really would.
Okay.
It really would.
Well, I'm just curious, but it seems funny to take it backwards and then pump it from there north. I don't understand.
So.
Got to go south to go north. Thank you.
And again, I didn't intend to list all of those. They're in the table. And the key to the table is, again, those X's. They show which which improvement would be needed for the respective development. And the costs are, we put in a cost opinion to those as well, and those are listed. So. Any questions on that? Do you want me to keep going? Okay. I'm actually almost done, so we can back up and take any question there is. Just a couple of, I guess, qualifications to the analysis. Again, we didn't do new measurements of flow, so there could be slightly less improvement. There could be slightly more improvement needed, improvement to the sewers. That probably would be a good idea for a major development to occur, that you collect some more data in the field. I'd just like to make that suggestion. It's related. The actual flows and capacities might be slightly higher, slightly lower. If there are roots in the sewer or gravel in the bottom of the pipe, it would be less than what we assumed in this study. So again, measurements would help with that. And I also feel like small developments, nothing that we did concerned me to continue allowing, small infill type developments, single lots or small groups of lots here and there. Again, we weren't so far off of the capacity that concerned me. I just threw out a number. Maybe if you had more than 100 in total, I would start to be more concerned. But I don't think your single customers here and there would be any reason to be worried about those capacities. As far as potential next steps with trunk sewers, discussion here, you could include the cost for some of these improvements in a connection fee. That would be one way to prepare for these improvements. Build into a connection fee a prorated cost, and then put money away so when you have more development, it pays for the cost of the improvement. And that really would apply to the tank as well. You could put some of that cost into a connection fee. The tank will serve some purpose of existing customers, but it also helps for growth as well. Again, I think measuring flows prior to actually going and constructing any of these would be wise, but I think this is good planning data to work with property owners with. And again, these infiltration inflow sources that we talked about earlier, I know that Mr. Hardesty's staff does this, but as you find those, it's important to keep removing those as you find them, because the sewer doesn't heal itself, it only gets worse. So it requires maintenance, and that's all I have.
Emphasize a few things that you already touched on before the
microphone.
And that is available sewer capacity prior to potential development. So just put this back up there. Frank, you want to get this one back up?
And there's no reason to build out.
So, I mean, I think the key kind of takeaways in terms of our system for tonight's purposes is one, obviously the need for the equalization basin, which we touched on, but, this kind of bottleneck area, okay? So if you look at segment B and on your other sheet, which would be this one, you can go down the graph and you can trace each one of these areas. For example, what happens if somebody came in and wanted to build homes in Wildwood? And then you would go down and you would look at Wildwood and you would look at the X's that are included in the Wildwood subdivision, and that would give you a corresponding dollar amount in order for those homes to be built. And the developer would be on the hook for some or either a portion or all of it, depending on exactly what the situation is. But the key kind of bottleneck that we have is in segment A and segment B, and to a certain extent a little bit right here, although it starts to open up. And then in addition, there's some improvements that would be needed at the pump station. So that's for anything north of North Territory, or north of Horseshoe Lake. So any development that would occur even in the Whitmore Lake area would require, and if you look at, improvement segment A, or that improvement, it's, I forget what numbers those were, but I think it added up to about $2.5 million. Yeah. So $2.5 million for this sort of bottleneck issue. Okay, if you were to look at the Leland property as development, now again, we wouldn't be paying for this. This would be either partially or fully funded by the developer or used through revenue of tap fees. But if you look at the Leland property, you can go down the list and look at the X's that exist in the Leland property. It adds up to $4 or $5 million. Now, we wouldn't necessarily ask a developer to pay 100% of those costs, because some of that is related to sort of a pro rata share of the capacity that exists here at North Territorial and how that gets pumped. But you can see each corresponding area and what the projects would be for each one of those corresponding areas. And again, we focused on medium density residential development because that obviously has the largest sort of usage of the sewer system, the tax of the sewer system. But if we look at any one of these areas and you said, well, what if we were to, for example, put a shopping center, at 8 Mile and 8 Mile, where is it? 8 Mile and right here. There would probably, again, need to be some line that would connect into this blue pipe, this area of blue, that would get you to the sewer plant, and you would say, okay, well, a connection there would require $1.5 million worth of improvements to that particular line. So that's the only thing I wanted to emphasize. And then the last thing is, Brian brought up a point, and I'm not saying that we need to kind of figure out what the number is, but it has become relatively clear, I think, with all of us that have been doing this analysis for now quite some time, that our tap fees or service connection fees or sewer connection fees are at $35.50 are way too low to support the infrastructure upgrades of the system, because those dollars are supposed to actually fund these improvements over time. And we won't be able to fund these type of improvements over time at those values. So at least that's my personal opinion. I think it's also Brian's opinion as well. So I will now turn it back to Brian and the board for questions.
So I do have one comment. So I do love the grid here for the developmental impacts. The cost, the project cost to those, is there an inflation to those year after year, or?
So present dollars, correct?
They're present dollars.
They're present
So
dollars.
say like in, if we're doing another new master plan or something like that, we should reevaluate that at this time again?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to say something to Howard's last comment. They're not breaking down the doors to come for $3,500, Howard. How, after all, how high do you think it should be? I mean, we probably got ourselves priced out of the market here. So I disagree with you saying that we have to charge more money. That don't make sense to me.
Yep, I understand that, Mr. Dockett.
We don't have anybody coming.
Yep, I get that. We're the lowest in the area at $35.50.
And we still have no one coming. So.
Yep, but yeah,
So
I get that.
Other questions?
So is this map that we're looking at, you know, you don't have any of Maxi or the commercial up on 36 or anything. That doesn't need to be included in what we're talking about because those are already allocated?
All existing customers are included in the analysis.
But maybe not identified on the map?
Well, yes, we didn't have existing service areas highlighted. We didn't draw a boundary and said this is the boundary. We just made a house count
Okay,
and
but
distributed them.
But I'm not seeing trunk lines or anything running to certain areas that I know of sewer.
This is the area where the sewer ends.
Okay.
There's no other sewers on the map.
Okay, Whitmore Lake High School, let's go down there. High school's,
That may be missing.
the high school's on the sewer.
Yeah, I think that's missing on the map.
But in terms of N36, in terms of N36, there's a private line that goes to McDonald's, and that's probably not on the map. But for the most part, it pretty much ends at the expressway.
All right, thank you.
Does it take
But-
in the rest of the restaurants up there, Howard?
No,
But what about?
Just McDonald's? Just McDonald's?
that's correct.
Okay. It runs on
And
the
Maxie's
railroad.
has never been a part of the system? They are a part of the system.
They have their own line right to the plant. So
Okay.
But if they ever came back online with, I mean, they're empty. I mean,
Right.
so if they
There's
decide-
legislation to do that right now in the
if-
House.
If they did something with that, if they brought, 500 kids in there, what would we have?
How many REUs are currently connected? How many customers do we
Oh.
have? And
I don't have that number memorized. I mean, we could get that.
okay, and how many do we have available, in currently?
1,500 or something.
Well,
1,400.
it depends where it is. I
It
mean,
depends on, right, that's true. If it's up in the, it just depends, right?
yeah, North Territorial, you have available capacity. If it's connected to the gravity sewer, our calculations are your demand is nearly equal to your capacity.
Okay.
I'll just also point out that it's not a singular line.
Right.
It's not that we have capacity. There are different types of capacity. So there's plant capacity, there's wet weather capacity, there's conveyance capacity. And so what we've essentially done over the last year is we've analyzed all of the sewer department. This kind of rounds it out. And this portion of it, kind of going back to Ken's question, this is the conveyance system. So if Maxie's is on a separate line, it wouldn't be relevant in these numbers in this analysis, but would be relevant obviously in the plant capacity. So
Okay.
we can
Right.
say that we
I get
have
that.
plant capacity, but and that's fine. But if we don't have capacity to get the effluent from the development or from an existing home to the plant itself, that's another level of capacity.
Yeah, I was seeing the numbers of infill that, if there was any infill that was available, there aren't a lot of REUs available for the infill.
Not a lot.
Right,
There-
and then if we wanted to do something up at, on the Van Curler property, there's not a lot there available, correct?
There is not.
Right.
If we wanted to do something on the Van Curler property, we would have to have some significant improvements to this last mile of line.
Okay.
Brian, is that?
Okay.
Yes.
Well, then maybe
Yeah,
since the
that's
planning
right.
commission is joining us now, we've been talking about this for, 2 years now, trying to figure out what do we have, and no one seemed to know, so that's why we asked Brian to do the study. But maybe talk about what we've discussed about, North Territorial has a ton of capacity, but no one's using it. So do we borrow from that capacity and start building up with new future development that we charge them the higher connection fees that we can then give back the territorial capacity back to them? Because it's just so limited that, if we're going to hold the capacity right in that area, then nothing, what's the word we called, kind of hold anything hostage, that,
Oh.
or build it and they won't come, or what did...
Allocated or?
Yeah,
Allocation or?
Right, so, you know, and
reservation.
we talked about even if everything that did have the sewer built out, do we have enough at the plant? And we came up with the answer of no.
At the plant, it's, yeah, about 100, and then I think Tim's gonna start to have some even bigger wet weather issues, so, you know, that's where the tank came into play.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a couple different questions, yeah.
That, a quick question. So while it's not on here, the line for the high school, is that a south running line and then it's on the line that's under pressure, or is it a gravity fed to 6 Mile?
Tim, you probably know better than I do. I think you'd better to answer that.
It is, they have their own pump station that pumps down Whitmore Lake Road to 6 Mile. So it's I can't hear you. Their line, they have their
So
own
it goes
pumping.
north on Whitmore Lake Road?
That's correct. It goes north on Whitmore Lake Road and dumps into a manhole and is gravity fed.
So they're part of the gravity fed system? then?
Correct.
Tim, is that pump station privately owned?
Yes, it is.
And that's why it's not on the map, because it's not part of the public system.
None of the houses are on it.
I do want to mention that those areas that are MDR, that's 1 acre to a 1/4 acre, depending on if it has sewer or not. So just because it's MDR doesn't mean it has to have a 1/4 acre.
Right.
Although finding perk sites is an issue for properties that are going to be 1 acre. So.
And I think the ranges we have in that drawing represent the ranges that you quoted, so.
Right, and that was my point, you know, like you have the Wildwood Lake area, you know, as, that is zoned MDR, but one this, you know, those are all privately held property, large parcels, that, and you'd, even if the largest one, which is 100 acres on that map, you'd have to still cross 2 other properties to get to the sewer. So when we look at how much MDR we have, we really don't have that much, and when a developer's looking to say, where are your sewers and where's your MDR, we don't necessarily match up, is what I've always kind of thought. And the blue section that you have for the 7 Mile Road, maybe next time the Planning Commission, you know, does the, you know, looking at the master plan, because the 7, you know, as you said, the changes, you know, that's the county park now, and some wet, you know, heavy wetlands in that area. So once again, we don't have really that as MDR, even though, we, you know, yes, the sewer is there, but, you know, we've talked about getting a whole map of the township, you know, to know exactly where all the wetlands are and where the desirable land is. And did we go any further with that, you guys? No? All right. The soil study of the, kind of the entire township, you know, just to... Okay. Just to see where the desirable land would be, you know, for any development in the future, looking at the master plan.
Yeah, I actually, I'm not sure I've ever said this publicly, but I will tonight. I actually 100% agree with Marilyn on this. When you look at the master plan and you look at the MDR properties that exist in the master plan, in terms of properties that have existing infrastructure, and then even, we didn't obviously know this information, but now knowing this, there's probably really only logically speaking one property, maybe 2, that has the potential for typical MDR development. So we just, you know, obviously hindsight is 20/20. We didn't have the information that we have today. I had sort of been thinking that for quite some time, and now it's starting to sort of come out from multiple perspectives. But in terms of the available property for sort of residential development, there's not a lot of existing property that would be able to tap into the sewer to develop in Northfield Township from our existing master plan.
That's correct.
You would agree with that?
Yes.
All right, any questions, further questions for Brian? No? All right. Brian, thank you so much. I
You're
know
quite
this
welcome.
is kind of the final dance with our 2 years of asking all these questions that no one had answers to. I do appreciate it. Actually, you know what? Since the planning commission's here, and maybe you want to just give a quick history of, back in the 80s that this was, someone tried to get a study, and, the equalization basin was requested at that time. All that information,
Well, the plant's been expanded a number of times and that's how treatment plants do evolve. You don't build a plant for the build-out condition in a community. You build it so it can be expanded as the growth occurs. I think the point you were trying to make is one of the plans in 1988 was to build the wet weather storage tank on the site. That project did not proceed. That expansion was later done, but when that was done, the tank was not built. The point is that has been long discussed and is quite a long paper trail in my records for the township. When the other key point that I know of was, we mentioned this earlier, when the agreement with Green Oak was executed, there were many plans made immediately upon signing of that agreement to expand the plant again with a storage tank. And right after that, the economy went straight down the tube. So that, again, didn't happen. But it's clearly been part of the plan for that treatment plant for 28 years that I know of to build a storage tank. Is that the history that you...
Yeah, kind of like long overdue, and it's always been kicked to, the can's been always kicked to the next board, and no one ever seems to do anything.
And it is a common, I don't know the exact statistic, but I would say well over half of the treatment plants in Michigan have a storage tank to address wet weather, to address just these occasional morning and evening types of peaks. So it's not an unusual component of a treatment plant.
All right. I don't have any questions. No more? Nope. All right. Thank you, Brian, for your presentation. I'm sorry.
I just want to thank you for the presentation. It was very well put together, tons of research. You do such an amazing job for this township. It's really appreciated, the work that you do, and we're all a lot smarter because of it now, so thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for those kind words.
Yeah, thank you on behalf of the Planning Commission as well. All right.
All right, that's the conclusion of our agenda items and presentations. It takes us on to our second call to the public. Once again, this is an opportunity for anyone to get up and share your thoughts. We do try to leave it for a maximum of 3 minutes, and it is not a question and answer session. Do we have anyone that would like to speak for our second call to the public? We have our first speaker.
There we go, that's a little better. David Gordon, Helena Road. The soil question was brought up by the supervisor about the soils in our community. The Washtenaw County has a map of the soils in our community. It's a public document that's widely available. The soils really haven't changed in our community. They've been this way for probably tens of thousands of years. Number two, I don't believe anybody has kicked the can down the road in terms of this 1998 or 88 recommendation. There were simply decisions made. I know that when we were on the board, when I served on the board, we decided not to spend money for something that wasn't needed. That's not the same as kicking the can down the road. I obviously would object to the idea that this is something that's needed, since it hasn't been needed for 28 years. Let the developers pay for it if and when they ever show up. And lastly, there was a question about a lawsuit. I've got a copy of a lawsuit here from 2002 that's a consent agreement. We have our attorney right here too. The consent agreement says that it's a 5-year, the terms of this consent agreement shall commence on the date, April 20th, 2002, and terminate 5 years hence. I believe this is the document. So there's no legal obligation for you to do this. I know it's been brought up a number of times, but that doesn't exist. I would like to see the board start focusing on doing what the community has expressed they want to do, which is preserve natural features in this community. I commend the Parks and Rec Department for the work they've done there. That's the kind of thing people are looking for here. All this effort, all the money they're paying you to have a special meeting tonight to talk about sewer expansion is all revolves around growth and development and this residential subdivisions. This is not what the community's ever identified since 1996 as being a priority in this community. That's all. Please focus on what the people here want: improving downtown, preserving natural features. That's the goal. Please work on that. Thank you.
Great. Do we have any other speakers this evening? All right. That takes us to board member comments. Anyone from the Planning Commission want to chime in or anything?
I would like to say I really appreciate that sewer study. I wish we had it when we were working on the master plan. That would have been really helpful. So it's great to have all of this in line to look at in the future. Appreciate it very much.
I would like to thank the board for a joint meeting, and also it has been referenced about what the community would like and what they would enjoy. One of the items I know that was identified in past discussions is a lakeside park. There is an ideal piece of property just north of mine that Thomas Troy owns, that has a house on it, that has a pavilion, that has lake frontage. I would just ask the board to consider that and have a discussion for that, for the community to have an ideal location for a park. It's probably one of the only ideal pieces of the lake frontage that could be utilized for that. So I would just encourage you to possibly have a discussion on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken?
I would like to echo Sam's comments. The one thing that I can say that has been consistent over the years has been a community desire to have access to being able to enjoy the lake. And that is something that I've been approached as recently as last week in regards to that. I was asked if the Planning Commission was doing anything. I've directed those folks to you guys, the board, because obviously we as a Planning Commission, that's not, acquiring land and doing something like that is not something that we can do. It's something you can do. So I would also encourage you to consider that and think about it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone to my left here? Go ahead, Wayne.
Well, I'm totally against that. It's got 2 parking places. Why in the world would we buy that property? There's no place to park. I mean, who are we buying it for? I mean, for 1 or 2 people to park on? We've got a lovely park, less than a mile away. I just think it would be idiotic to spend money on that, and who's going to get any good out of it? There's no place to park, so that's a bad idea in my opinion. We've already discussed it. We've already talked about it. We've talked about it in closed session. I just don't think, I know that, something like this, it only has to pass once. It can fail 100 times. We talked about it. We turned it down. So I just don't think we should bring that back again. Thank you. I would think that people should use and buy locally services if they can. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Wayne. Anyone else?
Sorry. Since it's come up, I want to jump on that bandwagon as well. That has always been a pet project for myself, or something that I've been interested in as well. As far back as when we were on the Blue Skies Committee, we've done surveys. The public, with visioning sessions in downtown, Whitmore Lake, and when we were doing our master plan visioning sessions, the people were saying they wanted something on the lake, some kind of public access, whether it's swimming or not swimming, a park, picnic benches, something so that they can come and sit on the lake and enjoy it as well. So I think if so many people are asking for it, we should be doing something to get that for them. And when that opportunity arrives, we should at least try to take advantage of it. So, and I do have a second comment. I just wanted to invite the public too. There are 2 public hearings scheduled for the April 7th Planning Commission meeting on the proposed amendment changes to the zoning ordinance and revisions to the Planning Commission bylaws. So, I can't say
One
that.
public hearing.
Sorry, 1 public hearing, but 2 items, right?
No.
Oh, never mind.
The bylaws is not a public hearing.
Okay. Oh, there was a notice in there.
It's noticed, but it's not a public hearing.
Okay, never mind. It was for the zoning ordinance and revision. Okay, but yes, I'm done. Thank you.
If we don't have anyone else, I'll make a motion to adjourn.